So we're going to try to roll through as many questions as possible. I did get some more, so I'm going to try to start with as many questions that I received first and then get to ones that I had crafted after. The first thing, though, before we get started, I want you to just tell us a little bit about your family. You mentioned Alicia, your wife, in the talk. But tell us about Alicia, how long you've been married, how many kids you got, and then maybe end with what does your family devotional time look like?
Okay, yeah. So from outside of Abilene area, was saved and understood the importance of expositional preaching pretty quickly after I was saved. So I found this church called Southside Baptist Church, which is where I now pastor. And I met Alicia at Southside Baptist Church. She was baptized there. I was baptized there. We were married there, so special place. So met her there. We went together to Southern in Louisville, and we really went 2-year stints for a little bit. So we went Louisville, Houston, hoping to stay there and die there. Lord had other plans. Alicia was glad to leave Houston. I liked Houston, but Fort Worth, Austin area, now Abilene. And I have Josiah, Asher, Karis, one girl in the middle, and then Knox and Boaz. So it's been fun. She went to school to be a nurse. She nursed for a few years. We started having babies. We did classical conversations. There's CC here in El Paso. Mm-hmm. We did that for years. Kids started getting older. We moved to Abilene, and Alicia started seeing like her capacity being reached. She starts praying for an option. And I finally got on board 5 years ago, and we started a classical school in Abilene 3 day a week, and she teaches there now. So teaches second grade there, and all 5 of my kids are in that school 3 days. We do homeschool Monday and Friday, so that's been really fun for ours. Church and school, and they meet at the same place, so we're really enmeshed in that, and it's great. Kids love it. I was nervous at first if it might be too much, but it's been a sweet culture, and Alicia's been a gift there, so that's been fun. And family worship, is that what you're saying? Yeah, so I change it up pretty regularly, but so what I'll do, this is going to sound like a lot. It's really not when you think about it, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for us are school days. So my oldest, 15 and 13, they get up just 30 minutes earlier than they normally would at 6:30, and we read books together. Read a little bit of Bible and then read books. Basically, I've got a list that I want all my kids to have gone through between 13 and 18. But it's 30 minutes of really just reading in the morning 3 days a week. So it's not a lot, actually. But again, cumulative, long view, 5 years of that, of time with their daddies, sitting down with them and opening the Bible and talking through leadership, godliness, manhood, marriage, finance, those sorts of things. It's going to add up after a while. Then right after that, so they're eating breakfast daily. So you got to figure out your family rhythms here, figure out what works for you. But they eat breakfast. Usually ends up at the table around 7:05, and I'll come in. Right now, I call it a word on the way, and sometimes it's literally one verse. But right now, I'm just doing New City Catechism, and I'm just reading the question. We're going through it. Great option for it. There's tons of good catechisms, so that's what we're doing right now. So again, we're talking like 1 minute, honestly, like a very short time, but it's the cumulative, And then main family worship for us is at the dinner table. We've tried different things. We used to do it before bed. We've got my wife has 2 little lap dogs, and they get demon possessed right at family worship. They go crazy. So we quit doing the living room. Now we're at the table, so we just eat dinner, and then we just go right into read, pray, sing. And I have no musical skill whatsoever, neither does Alicia. It's a real bummer. We wish we did. So we will use YouTube to help us sing. And we sing songs that we'll sing for Sunday, and we'll pray briefly, and we'll pray through some of the members in the church. So again, sounds like a lot. You do the whole total of a day there, it's not a lot actually. But it's faithfulness over the long haul of you seeing your kids seeing you lead out spiritually.
So what YouTube channel are you using for the hymns to help our other non-gifted musicians? We have a song list. It's really just for Jason.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Southside songs of Southside. Which y'all have some type of song list online anywhere?
No, I listen to yours.
Oh well, there you go. They're probably
it's
the
on
same.
Spotify.
They're probably the exact same. I bet we sing basically the exact same song. So, but it's really helpful if someone can have the time to do this to publish like on Wednesday the songs y'all will sing on Sunday, so y'all can be ready, especially your kids coming into Sunday. Not to add work to your plate, but That's a gift.
It's okay. We have a music guy.
Oscar, you got it, bro.
They can take care of that for
Put
the
the
church.
songs
So,
Wednesday.
You had work to his plate.
Sorry, homie.
I had a question come in. Is marriage between unbelievers still a covenantal institution?
Yeah, I think so. It's given as a gift of common grace. And again, we ought to be for marriage between a man and a woman. You have to qualify things today, don't we? In general, pro-marriage, because it just goes better. The statistics for how well things go when you just have a man and a woman together over the long haul, it just goes better for everybody. It's better for the economy. It's better for their health. It's better for the children. Now, obviously, they're going to be anything like your marriages because Christ is gone, but it's still better. So we ought to be pro-marriage, full stop. And yeah, they need to stay married. You know, there's a new book that came out recently, and it's called The Two-Parent Privilege. It really is shocking, even the state of Texas, how many single-parent households there are. And it really is now considered a privilege if you have two parents. Kids who have two parents at home, it just goes so much better. So yes, long answer. It's a different kind of covenant, but you should stay married. That's what I mean by covenant commitment.
Yeah. So you made a reference to cornerstone versus capstone in relationship to marriage, that until 1960s in the United States, marriage is the cornerstone institution to which everything else is built around. Now you mentioned some research that pointed to it being a capstone. So after you finished all these other things, then you look at seeing if you're prepared for marriage. So how do you think through how to do that? You pastor in a college town, and so how are you helping students, how are you helping young people think through, okay, do we get married right out of high school? Do we go to school? How are we doing this? And what does that look like pastorally in counsel and wisdom that you would give?
Yeah, we push it hard and heavy, and now we are maybe beginning to pull back a little bit, because you probably should know one another longer than a few months before you pop the question. So actually, that's what Alicia and I did, and it went great. We went really quickly, but I had a good friend that did a very similar thing, and he didn't get to know her very well, and it was really hard. They're still married by God's grace, but some of our college students now are getting quite zealous and rushing, and so we're now pumping the brakes a little bit, trying to find the right balance between early versus too early, too soon, or whatever. But I do believe that really, I mean, it is funny when you get married, right? When you get married, you've dated your person for a little while, but they're able to put their best face forward for a long time. And you go and you hang out, usually at somewhere, and you go home. They're able to fake it for quite a while. And you don't really know what kind of husband he's going to be. And you don't really know what kind of dad he's going to be. There's just so much trust, but I think that's the way it's meant to be. And really, at the end of the day, it's in the marriage that maturity comes. Really, it's not till you're married that adulthood really comes, right? And really, marriage is just a long date until you have kids. That's when the real weight gets put in the back of the pickup, but it drives straighter that way. So it's God uses responsibilities to help us grow into it. We grow into it, so.
We don't get that analogy here. There's no snow or dirt
Yeah.
roads. Like, you're gonna have to explain that one.
It's good to have responsibility, but we're wondering, to be full disclosure, we're wondering if some of our college students are moving too fast.
So what are the things that need to be in place before you would recommend your college students pursue that?
Well, specifically, the guys need to have a plan, and we're trying to get in the grill a lot more on this stuff. Dads have just not done great with teaching basic things. So with the guys, we're just trying to make sure they've thought through finances, that they have a plan, that they know what they're going to do with their life, they're able to provide. And for us, we're pushing not only providing for your wife, but when they have babies, providing not only for your kid, but providing your kid with a full-time mother, at least in those early years. So we don't require, but we do push. We want mamas home with babies in those early years, if at all possible. So we're trying to get the guys to think through that financially. And it's hard. It's hard to do that today. So trying to work with them that way. But godliness, we talk about pornography a ton. And we've built a culture now at Southside where the girls will straight up ask, tell me the last time you looked at pornography. And so our guys know that, and it's been a helpful culture builder to like, okay, that girl's going to ask me, so I better straighten up here. So, but at the end of the day, just godliness and wisdom is really what we're looking for.
How often should married couples have a date night?
Well, it depends on how we define date night. I don't want to
Define it
put,
for us.
well, what I don't want to do is say you need to go like out. You got to plan your budget, which is a whole nother conversation. You should have a budget. You should agree to it. You should have parameters. Yeah, that's really important. The things couples fight about most are in-laws, sex, and money. So I'm not trying to make budgetary complications say you need to go somewhere, because you can do it at home, right? But meaningful time where it's just y'all face to face. I'm not saying sitting, vegging out, watching Netflix either. That doesn't count. I'm not saying never do that. Make sure, though, that you have face to face time where you're talking to. That's what I mean by a date. So you can do it, for us with 5, we basically just got to shut them out, or even just taking a walk, But I also want to say, spend some money on your marriage. Like, do some things pretty regularly. I don't want to legislate anything, but something like, going out to eat once a month, doing something a little bigger like we try to do. And I'm a pastor's income with 5 kids, so we got to be creative sometimes, but we try to go for a one night. So usually just Fort Worth. For us, that's 2 hours. Get out of the city a little bit and just one night away. And for us, that goes a long way. That just feels so refreshing. We've got one coming up in early November. Can't wait.
How often do you do that?
We try twice a year.
Okay.
And that's expensive, but you want to invest in it. You want to invest in it in your marriage. But the point is regular face-to-face conversation where it's not just logistics. If you have older kids, that's the challenge, right? You start having teenage kids, you're just talking logistics all the time, talking calendar all the time. So you just forget all that stuff. Let's connect.
So this is a bigger question, and you may be hitting on it tomorrow. How should Christians think through family planning, contraceptives? You made mention of the pill, and thinking through how many kids ought one to have when you're trying to process through that. You mentioned you tell your people to round up. I think Sun City does a decent job of rounding up. But how are you thinking through and processing that and helping your members think through that?
Yeah, it's funny. Coming early years as a pastor, you have a bunch of minivans in the parking lot, and you just feel proud, like, yes. And then a few years later, you have all the transit vans, and you're like, okay, here we go.
We're in transit van mode.
That's the same here, man. But listen, in all seriousness, let me be careful here. Children are not an automatic blessing. Disciplined children are a blessing. Again, the easy part is having kids, but you've got to spank those kids. You got to parent them well, discipline them, and train them. And there is a tendency sometimes of large families being out of order and out of control. And so don't keep having kids if they're not under your authority and loving the standard. And so just want to be careful there. That's where you want the church. You love each other. You can speak truth to one another, and that's what you want, so that you can say, hey, this happened recently. Someone asked me this, and I don't think they should have anymore because of the state of their currents. And it was an awkward conversation. But I would say, hey, you know what? Why don't you just focus on these areas for a little bit? And so being able to hear that feedback, so many Proverbs talk about the wisdom of valuing feedback. There's 20 of them in there. And we tend to not want it. We get so offended. And so that's one piece. It's hey, how are we doing? Obviously, you and your spouse talking about it, but getting some feedback. When you look at my home, what are some areas you think we can grow in? So that's a conversation piece. It's not just have a bunch of kids. That can be a curse if they're not well trained. And seriously, spanking a lot in those first 3 years just requires a lot. But it pays off later, right? Some of you have done that. You're very tight. It's the funnel analogy, right? You're very tight in those first 3 to 5 years, and you slowly. And my kids are far from perfect, but we spanked. I say we. It's mostly Alicia. She's on the ground, right? I'm at work. It felt like some days that's all she did was spank all day long. And we're very tight. But man, we see the fruit of it now. Well, I couldn't even tell you the last time we spanked. Now, my youngest is now 8, but it's been 5 years. I mean, you do it a lot, and then you don't. You loosen up, and they respect authority. That's really what you're doing in those early years, is helping them to love authority and trust authority. And so if you're tight early on, man, it just pays so much fruit later. And listen, it's hard to do it the opposite way. If you haven't had that in the first 10 years, it's so hard to try. So those first 5 years are just so vitally important. So that's where yes, lots of kids, but lots of discipled kids. With the family planning stuff, what I'm learning with college students, a lot of the girls are on the pill or IUDs, and they just don't know that both of those are abortifacient. Maybe y'all don't know that. Do some homework, read the labels. My opinion is that neither of those are Christian options because of that abortifacient mechanism in it. So an egg can be fertilized and be discarded. But they just don't know that. So one of the things we're learning, we got to talk about these things. Everybody's doing it, so they just think it's fine. So those aren't options. But other options can be wise. We've done that through the years of knowing and spacing and man, mentioning the beautiful gift of sex in children, and also just the female body is just a wonder what the female body can do when it comes to childbirth and even after. But it also can take a toll, right? And so you want to be wise about it. I don't think, obviously, I wouldn't hold to like a Catholic view that every sex act should be able to produce children, but we want to be pro-kids with wisdom would be my take on it. And each family's got to figure that out. They're not easy conversations. And so we want to give grace. We're in a lot of gray areas in this conversation, in my opinion. What would you say?
Listen, I brought you here to straighten all of us out, not to ask the question back on me. No, I think, like in premarital counseling, we do a session on this. Anything that's tied to abortifacient is just like out of the gate, a no-go. So that's the first way we think through it. And then, wisdom, thinking through, just because you can physically have kids doesn't mean you need to have all of them. And so, I don't think I would have really anything to add to that. Ditto would be my response. Let's see. I can only do a couple more. What are helpful voices and resources on this topic of marriage? And you referenced My Dear Hemlock. Mm-hmm. It's My Dear Hemlock.
Tilly Dallahey, I think. Yeah,
which is a really good book, by the way. So another plug for that one.
Super good.
Please read it. But what are other resources, from books to podcasts to what do you think is helpful, most helpful?
Yeah, I think it is a good practice to try to read a marriage book every couple years, just to stay fresh. Again, one of the challenges is we just
together. You mean together?
No,
or?
not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Just to stay fresh, because one of the challenges is life is busy, life is full, it's hard, and you just can kind of get the normalcy. You can be rocked by the regularity of it all and not stay engaged. So a good seminar like this weekend, the goal really is just to give you a shot of adrenaline, right? Same thing with the book. It's like, okay, let's get back in it. We've kind of fallen off the track a little bit. Let's get back intentional about some things. So same thing with a book. So we try to do that. Some of my faves over the years, I like Paul Tripp's book, Marriage. It's kind of high level, just encouraging things. Some of the conflict resolution stuff, like Ken Sande, that I mentioned. So he's got several iterations of that, the peacemaking family, to help us to fight well. You're going to fight, but let's fight well. The conflict's inevitable, but let's do good, godly conflict resolution. I like Keller's book on marriage, but what I don't like about it is he doesn't say hardly anything about children, which is like one of the main purposes. That's a real miss of that book, but there's some good stuff in that book. When Two Sinners Say I Do, by Dave Harvey. Larry McCall's got one now for seasoned marriages. There's a lot. There's a lot of good resources right there. Parents, little ones, Ted Tripp, Shepherding a Child's Heart, fantastic. Child Training Tips is a good one. There's a new one called 8 Errors out. We can put these in a list or something. But the publisher that has done a lot of good work on the family is Canon Press, I think. Canon Press's stuff on parenting is really helpful. So they got gals writing to moms, and they got several good ones on fatherhood. Reforming Marriage, it was a good one for us early on, really short. Michael Clary, God's Good Design. That's a good one. It's a little academic and it's a little thick, but it covers kind of the whole gamut. It's kind of a theology of sexuality. Michael Clary, Clary. Am I missing any that you like?
Maybe add, what?
Tying the knot. We use that for premarital.
Maybe add something other than book resources. Are there podcasts, things like that?
I'm sure there are, but,
Yeah, but not.
Abigail Dodds, what's hers called? Home Fires for the ladies. Abigail Dodds and Tilly Delahaye.
Okay.
Home Fires, that's a good one. For the guys, help me out.
I don't have any for that.
Scott Brown. Scott Brown has a ministry called Family Life, maybe. It's all about the family. It's really good. Scott
I
Brown.
have podcasts.
Chad Bettis, yeah, he's great. Yeah, Chad Bettis' books and podcast. Disciple Making Parent. Man, there's so much good stuff out there now.
All right, last one. Why is marriage so difficult?
Because the devil is real. I mean, he hates it, honestly, and so we have big targets on our backs. So there's a lot. It's a big question. Sin is the short answer, right? Our own sin and selfishness. But there's lots going against. So open up your Bibles real quick to Genesis 2. So we'll look at this tomorrow, but this is this foundational passage right after creation. We're created. We're called to be fruitful. First command of the Bible, marriage. That's how God's going to rule the world, is through married couples raising children in the fear and admonition of the Lord. Of course, we know the story, right? The fall happens. And you have this, remember how God created? So you have God over the man. So he creates the man first, and then he creates the woman from the man. All this stuff is just latent with design. So you have God creating the man, who then would tell what Adam would tell Eve what he was told. So the woman's created after God had instructed Adam. God could have created them at the same time, out of the same dirt. He didn't. He chose to create Adam, instruct him, create the woman from the man. And so the man presumably would pass on what he had heard from God to the woman, and they were both then together to have dominion over the created order. That's the hierarchy. Listen, man, people hate hierarchy today. If you hate hierarchy and you hate authority, you're going to have a hard time being a Christian, because the Bible's just full of it from beginning to end. Notice what the enemy does. You know the story, right? The snake slithers in, and what does he do? He inverts God's created order. Notice he doesn't go to Adam. He goes to the woman. So rather than God, man, woman, created order, you have created order to the woman who leads the man, and God's not in the picture. Total reversal of the creation. In Genesis 3:6, he was right there. Adam was with her. It's not as if he was gone and comes home to a forbidden fruit casserole. No, he was right there the whole time. Adam, who was with her. So if he were on his game, he would have chopped the head off the snake and turned him into boots, right? But he's sitting there. So right there you have male passivity right there in the garden. And there's always, abdication right there in the beginning. So you have all of this happening, and then you have the curses of the covenant. So go to 3:15, which is the first promise of the gospel, right? Proto-evangelium. And 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, you shall bruise his heel. So a promise of the gospel, but notice there will be perpetual enmity between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the serpent. And you have it right in the next chapter with Cain and Abel. Then you have with Pharaoh and Israel, the nations, all the way to the church and the world. We will always be at war. For the faithful, we are always at war because of Genesis 3:15, this great antithesis. But then notice verse 16, to the woman he said. So here's the curses of the fall. And notice the curses are going to relate to the woman and her fundamental vocation, and they're going to relate to the man and his fundamental vocation. So what are those? To the woman he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Childbearing there, I think, is the technical term is a synecdoche, a part for the whole. I don't think it just means labor pains. It certainly means labor pains. I think it means the whole process of childbearing. So the fact of getting pregnant and infertility and miscarriages, 30% of marriages, of pregnancies end in miscarriage. We don't talk about that enough in the church. So getting pregnant, having healthy babies for much of history, mama living through the childbirth, then the heartaches of parenting. Parenting is really hard. So the whole process is just really difficult because of the fall. In pain, you will bring forth children. It's going to be really hard. How does that affect her in her fundamental vocation? Motherhood, right? It's going to be hard to be a mom because of the curse. But it's also going to be hard to be a wife. The next verse, your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. A lot of debate about this, especially today with evangelical feminism. What does it mean, your desire? The word, it's more literally against or even for. Your desire shall be for. The question is, what does that mean? Your desire shall be for your husband. What is he getting at there? The main interpretation today, because of feminism being the majority in the world, is that this word desire is used 2 times in the Hebrew Bible. Song of Solomon 7:10, I think, in Genesis 4. A lot of the feminist interpreters today will say it's sexual desire in Song of Solomon. But it's hard for me to fathom a curse where the woman will desire sex with her husband. Kind of seems like a blessing, not a curse. So I don't think that's the case. The second time that this word desire is used is right here 15 verses later in Genesis 4:7. Look over there. If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire, same exact syntax, its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. What is sin trying to do here in Genesis 4:7? Control. And so what is, back to Genesis 3:17, your desire shall be contrary to your husband, your desire shall be for your husband. I think that is you'll want to control him. And so ladies, you got to know this, part of the curse, so part of your battle against sin is there will be in you something that does not want to follow your husband. It starts right here. Your desire will be against him. So in the curse, the woman is affected in her fundamental vocation. Listen, there's lots of ladies who will never have kids, never be married. They're not inferior in any way. But we got to talk about the norms. And the norms are marriage and family. And here, the fundamental vocation is a mom and a wife. And it's going to be really hard in both ways. Now the man, but he shall rule over you. I think that means like harshly. He's going to buck against that. You're going to buck against him, and he's going to buck back and react in a harsh manner. Colossians 3 warns men not to be harsh. Why is that commandment in there? Because the temptation of a man in his sinful nature is to be harsh. And here it is right here. He's going to have this temptation then to push back harder and harshly rule over you. So it's going to be hard for him to be a godly husband. He's affected in his fundamental vocation. She is a wife and mom. He is a husband and a provider. Next verse. And Adam, he said, verse 17, because you've listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. You shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, to the dust you shall return. So now his fundamental callings are husband and worker, and both are going to be really hard. And even the way we're designed, right? So again, God created the man from the dirt, from the ground, for the ground. He's oriented to the ground. He's oriented to the dirt. He's meant to work. She's made from the man, for the man. That's exactly what 1 Corinthians 11, 8, 9 says. And so her orientation is not the ground, not the dirt, but her man. She's relational. It's even in our anatomy, if you think about it. Men are outward, external. We're task-driven. We want to go get the thing done. Think about the kinds of books or movies guys like. What is the focus? The battle or the task? Think about the kinds of books or movies women generally like. It's usually going to be the path along the way in the relationships. Y'all are nurturers, life givers, beautifiers, glorifiers. And again, even anatomy, inward, receivers. So it's just stitched into everything. Here it says it's going to be really hard in every way. So why is it hard? Because of the fall. It's hard to be a godly husband. It's hard to be a godly provider. Work is cursed now. That's why any home project takes 4 trips to Lowe's. Thorns and thistles. It's why she's going to have trouble following at times, and why bearing children is going to be hugely blessed, but also filled with challenges east of Eden. So the nature of the curse, our own sin, our own flesh, the world telling us a different vision than the Bible, and then the devil. Makes it hard.
Please pray for us.
Pray. God, thank you for the promise here that the offspring of the woman will, in fact, defeat the offspring of the serpent. We can't wait for that day. Victory is assured. And I'm thankful that we have what we need for godly, flourishing marriages. We have the forgiveness of sins. We have the gospel, the power of you for salvation that we can build this relationship on. And we have the power of the Spirit to be able to say no to self, no to the flesh, no to sinful desire. And God, I pray for all the marriages represented here, but also in this congregation, God, that you would help us to be increasingly faithful. Where there is known sin, may it be confessed of, repented and confessed even tonight, and that we would be wholeheartedly pursuing you, keeping Christ at the center. So help us to make progress, God. Let this weekend bear fruit in that way. We know that's what you want. We want that. We want to see Christ honored and exalted. So help us to that end. I want to pray especially for the men in the room, God, that you'd give them godly initiative, death to self, that they would kill ego and pride, and would lead in strong ways towards godliness. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.